Hi, I'm Sperry Hutchinson with U-Haul. Today I'm going to show you how to install a trailer wiring kit onto this Dodge Journey. This trailer wiring kit is going to tie into this vehicle's lighting system and is going to make it easy to connect to a trailer that you're towing, because you have to have a lit, visible trailer going down the road for legality as well as to be safe and visible to other drivers. So let's get into the install.
You will need the tools seen here to complete this installation.
Now on our Dodge Journey, we're going to install a universal type wiring kit. And when we're installing a universal kit, we need to gain access to our vehicle's taillight wiring. And you have to first identify the best way to gain access to that wiring. Sometimes, as on this SUV, it will be easily accessible by removing the taillight housing itself. On certain passenger cars, certain SUVs, minivans, you will in fact find it easiest to remove the interior panels. We're going to go ahead and remove this taillight and show you the wiring that we've got here. I'm going to begin by removing these plastic fasteners. It's a two-stage fastener. So we unlock the center. And then I'm going to use a little pry tool to remove these. Now with that hardware removed, we simply pull straight back, and these detents release the taillight from the body of the vehicle. And we can see exactly what we need to access here, which is our vehicle light wiring. And another key to having an easy install is access beneath or down and out to connect both left and right taillights during our installation. If you don't have access as you remove this taillight, it may then also be best to go inside the vehicle. Now our universal kit includes a converter box here, out of which we have a number of leads, obviously our trailer four-way flat wiring, and then all of our vehicular leads that include our red lead for our brake lights, our brown lead for our tail lights, yellow, the L's are telling us that's on the left side, green is our right side. These are our turn signal wires, so green is obviously a lot longer. We're going to connect it to the other side, our passenger side of the vehicle. And then we have our white ground wire and our black power lead, since we're only using the vehicle's tail and turn and stop light circuits to signal, but not to power our trailer lights. So with our tail light housing removed, we want to begin by removing some of the tape or loom that we have here to gain access to our wiring. So be careful as we are cutting this to not nick or cut any wires. With our wiring now exposed, some of that loom stripped back, we're going to test our light circuits, because there are 4 different ways that vehicle manufacturers wire taillights these days. You've got a 2-wire system. That's where your stop light and your turn signal is on one wire and your taillight's on its own wire. You've got a 3-wire system where stop, turn, and tail are on 3 separate wires. There's a modern set of options there, ST, which is stop and tail light on one wire, turn signals on its own dedicated wire, and STT, where all three stop, turn, and tail are on one wire. So we need to identify which of our wires is doing what functionality so we can tie it into our universal kit. And my test light here is showing this white and gray lead is lit. Okay, and off the brakes and on the brakes again. Okay, now we've identified our white circuit as being tied only to our brake lights. Okay, and with our turn signal on, we see that our white and blue lead here is only our turn signal lead. Okay, with our wires noted, identified, I'm going to take the four-way flat lead as well as our passenger side wire leads and just drop them down the axis behind our rear fascia. And I'm going to leave our converter as well as our driver side leads that remain to be connected, including our power and ground wires. And I'm going to start connecting our running lights, brake lights, and turn signals using some of these splice connectors included in our kit. So I'll begin with our left turn signal. Let's see which one it is. I'm going to use a pair of pliers to insert that metal splice connector and then close the lock over top. And we're going to connect our remaining leads in the exact same fashion. So. Okay. All right, next we want to install a ground on our driver's side of our vehicle. And here we've got our white ground wire and our eyelet. And I've identified a spot here on the inside of the sheet metal housing for our taillight. You want to make sure there's no electrical connections or anything behind this panel because we're going to drill a 3/32 pilot hole in this spot and then attach our ground. All right, with our hole drilled, we're going to use the provided sheet metal screw through the eyelet into the hole to secure our ground. Okay, with our ground wire connected, the final connection we want to make on our driver's side is to connect our power lead, which is this black wire, to our provided length of black wire supplied in the kit. That's going to run under our vehicle all the way up front to the battery. So first I'm going to strip about 3/8 or 1/4 inch or so of insulation from the supplied power lead here. Give those wires a twist, and I'm going to insert that into our yellow butt connector, making sure the wire is all the way inside the metal portion of this connector. Give that a good crimp, and we'll do the same thing, removing about 3/8 of wire from our lead on our converter, inserting that into our butt connector, and again crimping that metal ferrule inside, making sure we have a good connection there. We can now drop that length of wire down to access it from below. Okay, in our kit we have a piece of double-sided adhesive foam tape that I'm going to use to secure our converter box to a nice out-of-the-way flat panel that I've got just below the taillight housing here on our Dodge Journey. All right, with all of our connections made on our driver's side, we can turn our attention to the passenger side, and we want to begin by removing our taillight. Again, popping these 2-stage fasteners, and then removing the taillight itself. All right, now beneath our fascia, we've got to get our green lead over to the passenger right side of our Dodge, and we want to go about that in a really safe manner by keeping this wire away from the exhaust and routing it so that it doesn't have the chance to fall down. So we're going to run it through a square formed cross member that's behind our fascia or our bumper here, and that we're going to accomplish by running a fish wire from the other side and pulling it through. Okay, to draw that green wire through the tube, I'm going to start by taking a length of stronger, heavier wire as a fish line and running it up and through that square cross member and finding it here on the driver's side.
Yep.
Okay, once I've got my short length of fish wire, I'm going to connect it to my green lead with just a short length of tape to secure it as I pull it back through that cross member. Okay, with our green wire safely through our cross member, we can disconnect our fish wire. And this lead is actually going to be a little too short to go all the way up to our taillight assembly, so I'm going to add a length of 16 gauge wire by stripping and using a butt connector to this lead. So again, just stripping about 3/8 or 1/4 inch of insulation from our green wire, twisting the copper strands. And I'm going to use a smaller 16 or 18 gauge butt connector and securely crimp the wires within. Once I've got a good connection there, we can run the green wire up through our rear fascia to our taillight housing. Okay, now that we've got our green wire up above our fascia, we're going to make our connection, but first we need to identify our turn signal wiring again, as we did on the driver's side. This housing makes it kind of easy since it has a dedicated signal light bulb, this amber, down below. I know that it's coming out of this harness, so I'm going to just strip the tape back a little bit on this plug only. Okay, using our circuit tester and again a helper in the vehicle, we can turn the turn signal on and probe our wires to identify our turn signal circuit. In this case, white with yellow is our turn signal lead. All right, with our turn wire identified, I am going to cut this green wire to length since we don't want a bunch of excess wire either wound up in this rear fascia or giving it any opportunity for it to drop down and be damaged in the future. So I will cut that wire and use a splice connector just like is provided in the kit to connect it to our factory turn signal harness. With our connections made, we can reinstall our taillights. You getting the shots? Yeah. Okay, wasn't sure. All right, now we're ready to run our power lead, this black wire we made the connection to earlier, beneath our vehicle up front. It has to go to the battery. Now, I've already gone up front and identified that the battery is on the driver's side on this Dodge Journey. And what we want to do is take your time to route this wire so that it doesn't come into contact with hot exhaust system components, any sort of drivetrain or suspension components that are moving as the car goes down the road, because that's going to damage the wire, it's going to pull it loose, it's going to create an unsafe condition. So here we want to take some time. In general, you can use the factory's installation of fuel lines and brake lines to identify a safe path, because they've already done that work to find a good routing for those systems away from exhaust and driveline components. So let's get under our Dodge Journey and take a look where we want to route this wire. On our Dodge Journey, we have our muffler and our suspension in very close proximity to where our power wire is coming down behind the rear fascia. But we have a hollow subframe rail that has a hole in it, and I'm going to run a fish wire through that hole that is going to take us up and safely around all of this heat and suspension movement. I'm just straightening out some of the last few kinks remaining in this coil of wire that I had. That's going to help us facilitate a nice smooth routing of this wiring up through our frame rail and all along under the vehicle. And now I'm ready to join this wiring to my fish tape. That's helpful when taping your fish tape and your wire to go up and over that bare end of the wire that you're going to pull. That's going to help also make for a nice smooth transfer as it passes through that frame. Now we can go back under the vehicle and pull it through. Okay, as I pull this wire, I want to keep an eye on how much I've got remaining at the back of the vehicle. Once I feel that it's pulled through, I'll just double check that we're good back at the rear portion of our harness. All right, now where I've got this power lead coming down from the rear fascia, I want to zip tie it up to keep it away from the muffler and so that it's not pulled so tight against that sheet metal edge. I'm going to use a zip tie behind this bumper bracket to help route this wire safely. Okay, with our wire now safely routed from our taillight through our subframe rail up to the front of our suspension, I can remove this fish tape since I'm going to have an easier time just routing the wire itself up through some of these existing brake and fuel line brackets. Okay, first I'm going to use this existing emergency brake cable bracket to help me get my wire established under the vehicle. Okay, now that we're through our emergency brake cable and we're ahead of the rear wheels in the vehicle, from here forward we're essentially going to follow the fuel and brake lines under the floorboard, utilizing their routing and their brackets to run this wire all the way up front to the firewall and ultimately to that positive battery post. Since we're making a few turns here, you can only route so far before you need to stop and pull the wire completely through some of these short sections. And wherever possible, use these existing brackets to support the routing of your wire. So here I'm running the wire through an existing cavity on this fuel and brake line isolating block, this mounting block, and this is going to support the wire. Now here I've got a corner that my wire is going to turn to follow the brake and fuel lines, and I'm going to zip tie this wire to this fuel line just to make sure that that wire stays right where I want it in this area. Once you have your wire routed where you want it, install plenty of zip ties to secure and ensure that that wire stays there. So every opportunity you have to install a zip tie, the kit comes with plenty of them. If you need more, buy and install more. Install them, secure them, and trim that loose end to make sure they stay put. And now that I've got my lead all the way up to the firewall, and in this last existing line clamp on the front subframe rail, I'm going to go up top and drop a fish line down from where I want the wire to appear next to my positive terminal. Okay, I've got my fish line and my lead. I'm going to connect them and go up top and pull my cable up the firewall. All right, with our wire now routed along some of these existing cables, it's clean, it's out of the way. We're going to prepare to make our final fusible connection here by cutting this loop that's got our fusible end on it, and we'll strip the ends of this wire back. Twist the copper cable ends, and one end we're going to insert into our ring terminal, always making sure the copper strands are in the metal ferrule before making a solid crimp. The other end we'll insert into our butt connector. now we want to plan smartly about how to route our wiring here. We're going to make our positive connection to this post. The vehicle's battery is mounted down and out of the way, but we have this positive terminal here, and I think we can connect and route following this heavy existing loom. So we'll go ahead and trim our black cable to match. Okay, with our final crimp connection made, we'll route our harness down out of the way. Loosen our positive terminal. Go ahead and install our ring terminal here. Reinstall the nut on the post.
Is that cap gonna close back down with it right there?
Yeah. If not, tell you what, we'll try it out. Oh yeah. Yeah, I won't do it just yet. So hold on a second.
Big pieces.
Okay. All right, ready? I'll redo that. Ready? Okay. We can relatch our cable cover there. Okay, and then install our 15 amp inline fuse in the fuse holder. Install the cover, and we'll tuck our wiring so it's nice and neat. All right, with all of our final connections made, all that's left to do is install a pair of zip ties on either side of our fuse holder to this existing wire loom. Okay, with all of our wiring connections now made, all that's left is our 4-way flat lead that's going to connect our vehicle to our trailer or the lighting system on our cargo carriers or hitch accessory. And as opposed to just having this lead hanging or zip tying it off somewhere, spend a little extra and you get a bracket, because the hitch manufacturers have included this tab, and this allows you to mount a modular sort of bracket that we've got here to secure our 4-way flat to. And the hardware comes with it. 2 screws and 2 nuts is all it takes to have a clean and secure installation Okay, with our hardware tightened up, we insert the 4-pole or 4-way flat connector through until those rubber bosses catch on that tab that's on top and below of our punch slot there. We're simply going to install this cover to keep our connectors clean and dry. And we have a clean final installation of our trailer wiring harness on our Dodge Journey. Thanks for watching.
To learn more about the products seen in this video, or to schedule an installation by U-Haul Hitch Professional, visit us online today at uhaulhitches.com.